So I've just been topping up the fluids and just checking over the Golf. And while I'm there, I just thought I'd clean up a bit of the engine bay. And I just stood just looking at the engine, just thinking, such a boring engine. To say it's 300 brake and it's all fancy and really quick four-wheel drive and launch control and everything. Sometimes when you pop the bonnet of a car, when you really get under the bonnet and you're like, whoa, that's a good looking engine, 2JZ engine, you'd be like, whoa, that looks great with big turbos hanging out of it and stuff, but looks like a 1.4 Polo, doesn't it? It's just efficiently boring, I think is probably the best way to describe it. Another day, another session on the SV650, carrying on with it, sort of cracking on with the intention of building myself an SV650 cafe racer for less than £1,000. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. I'll show you around it. Some of the things have changed since the last video. I've done a few bits off camera, so I'll talk you through them first. Here she is. So this is the current state of the bike. So since the last video, I've sorted out the front end, so I've fitted this bubble nose fairing to it. I have actually done a load of stuff to do with headlights and things, which I'll show you in a second, but for now I've spent quite a lot of time getting the fabrication right in the brackets behind it, so behind where that front fairing is. So in there you've got the front fairing that comes to here, and the headlight will stick out a little bit to about here. Behind that you've then got the clocks, there's a bracket, and it's now mounted to the front. Now this isn't hard mounted, I've just put cable ties on it for now, because I'm still spending quite a lot of time trying to work out the angle of where I want it tilted up and down. The issue when you do this is that you have to be able to turn your bars from lock to lock without it interfering with this cutout that you've got in the fairing. So you can see there's this curve. You have to make sure you can go full right and full left without things like this catching on. You can already see there, if you'll focus. You gonna focus? There you go. So you can already start to see here in the bodywork, there's a few marks, a few scratches that I'll have to take out when I paint it. That's from the choke lever, cable, button, whatever, scratching on this when I was testing out the fitment of it. So this is the like headlight housing which sits on the back of the headlight. So the headlight came was like that, and then that gave you your headlight. Spent a lot of time looking at this, so deciding whether I would be able to mount that inside, sort of behind, so in there, and then I looked at whether using the side holes, so these things have got two mounts either side. I did look at whether I'd be able to mount that inside, but it was just too bulky, so the gap in between the back of the bracket, which is in there, and then the front of the fairing was massive, and when I tried to incorporate that into it, it brought this nose cone out to about here, and it just looks wrong. That was just way too far forward, so I had to think of a way of getting rid of this and trying something different. So what I did was I created and butchered a headlight between a few different ones, and this is what I ended up with. That is how it goes into the bike, obviously with the front of it. And what I did is I butchered a number of different headlights that I had to create a headlight that I wanted. So what I've done is I've taken a headlight that used a socket like this. So this is the original wiring for the headlight, which had all these different connectors and things on it, and I've fitted a H4 bulb into it, and then I've, using the rubber mount, pushed a side light into it as well. So it's given me this light set up here, and the good thing with that is that that side light mount there and that H4 fit into that side light mount that goes into the front of the S fairing on the SV, and also if you can see it, so you might be able to just pull them out. So these are the two headlight connectors on the SV650S. So there's one there, so you can see. So that's the 3-pin headlight connector that you get on the SV650S, and there's two of them, because obviously it's got two headlights. But what that means is because I've put a H4 bulb in it, it means I can keep this connector, this standard connector, and that'll just fit straight on the back of the headlight. One other thing that I've been looking at as well is indicators and how I'm going to mount an indicator, because there's no space for an indicator on the front of the bike up here. So the plan is up there, round the back, up here, and then connecting there. So one of the things that I've noticed is that there's not a lot of room behind this bracket, and when I put this indicator in, because there's a lot of thread on this indicator, once it goes through, there won't be enough thread, there'll be too much thread poking through, and in order to get a nut on the back of it, there's only probably half the thread that could have the nut on, and the rest of it would be loose and dangling about. So what I need to do is I need to add a spacer to this so that it's not just flopping around on the front. Now, as luck would have it, I had some rubber spacers lying around. So this is just a simple rubber spacer, and I'm going to fit this to the indicator side of the thread so that this sits nice and flush and it's tight. So I've just finished fitting the indicators, and I don't think that's a bad place for them really. It probably could do with a bit of a smaller unit, but it's really easy to do. So all you do is you mount the indicator, as I mentioned before. So just using the existing indicators that it came with, using a spacer, and I've just run the cable up. I'll tighten the cable tie up here, and then just running it up here along the top of the radiator, through this gap where all the rest of the wiring goes, and then I've just connected it to the indicator plug that runs into the main loom.
Picking up the pieces that I lost in the lobby. I put you against the wall, you had us body to body. I can't help the way you make me feel, it's so hard to copy. Let's find common ground, meet me in a lost and found, yeah. Dark days turning into dark nights. I hit the strip and spend it all, I'm having hard times. That reminiscing had me looking through the archives. I seen a picture of you looking like a star shines, and you bright, 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 like the lights on a fight night. Love hit me like a mic, you know I'ma get it.